The basic axle design is not mine. It came from a pipe maker video that I saw on YouTube. I recommend that folks watch that first. The link is posted in the description. I made a few minor tweaks. This video shows a few modifications I made when building the axle for my one-man fishing boat. There are other similar YouTube videos where folks use conduit to build a kayak cart. I ordered a raft and frame style one-man fishing boat. I'm building a simple cart for it. My intent is to have snug wheels without lateral pressure on the bearings. I start by threading a 5/8 inch nylon insert stop nut onto the 3-foot 5/8 inch threaded rod. I tighten it until the end of the nut is flush with the end of the rod. One minor mistake I made was holding the rod with channel locks to tighten it without inserting a rag. I boogered the threads in the middle of the rod slightly, but not enough to be a problem. Next I add a 5/8 inch washer so the lateral pressure on the wheel bearing will be even. I follow this by adding the wheel. If you use pneumatic wheels like I did, be sure to place the valve towards the outside. I then add another 5/8 inch washer and thread a regular hex nut down the rod. You can see the slight difficulty I get in the middle area where I gripped it with the channel locks. I stop threading the nut a few inches before it hits the washer. So here's the modification I made to the basic design. I applied permanent Loctite Red 271 to the threading just above the washer. I then tighten the nut as much as I can by hand only. I figure this is not too much pressure on the bearing and the Loctite will hold the nut in place. I then add another 5/8 inch washer. Next it's time to take some measurements. I measure from the last washer to the tip of the rod. Let's call that the remaining rod length. I subtract the remaining rod length from the original rod length. I used a 3-foot rod. Let's call that the wheel assembly length. Next, subtract the wheel assembly length from the remaining rod length. This gives you the conduit length. You can buy PEX spacers from Pipe Maker, but I just grabbed a 5-foot by 3/4 inch piece of PEX from Lowe's. I adjusted my table saw blade to about 1/4 inch and then cut a single slot down the length of the PEX. You only need to go far enough to cover the conduit length measurement. This helps keep my hands away from the saw blade, and I used a fence to put the slot down the middle of the PEX. If you have a normal width table saw blade, 1 pass may be enough. I made 2 passes because I had a very thin blade on the saw and was too lazy to change it. Next, I cross-cut the PEX to the conduit length measurement. I then cut a piece of 3/4 inch EMT conduit to the same length. I did not show this part in the video, but I used a grinder and a rat tail file to clean up the end of the cut. The abrasive saw does not leave a clean cut, and my metal saw was at the farm. I then inserted the PEX tube over the threaded rod and inserted the conduit over the PEX. You can see that I must have left a slight burr, as a small coil of PEX is shaved off as the conduit is inserted. It was a nice tight fit. I ended up using a mallet to complete the insertion. If you took accurate measurements and did the math correctly, there should be just enough room for the wheel assembly. There's a little bit of slop since you can adjust the depth of the second nylon insert locking nut. I simply reversed the order of the first wheel assembly. I added a washer followed by a hex nut. Once again, I used Loctite and hand tightened the nut against the washer next to the conduit. I then added another washer and the wheel. Again, be sure the valve goes to the outside. I followed that with another washer and the nylon insert locking nut. I needed to use a wrench to tighten the nuts because of the nylon lock. Be careful not to over-tighten it. The wheel should be snug but spin easily. And there you have it, an axle for my one-man boat cart. You don't really need a video for the rest of the cart. I ordered 2 90-degree connectors, 4 45-degree connectors, and 4 T-connectors from PipeMaker. The 90-degree connectors went on either side of the axle, as you can see. I cut 4 3-foot sections of 3/4 inch conduit to attach to the ends of the 90-degree connectors. I put the 45-degree connectors on the ends of these pieces of conduit. I cut 2 more 3-foot sections of pipe to go through the 45-degree connectors to form the top side rails. I added the T-connectors to the ends of those conduit sections and slid the last 3-foot sections of pipe I connected through them. This is the result. Since the raft is rubber, I decided to cover the conduit and connectors with foam pipe insulation. I secured it with Gorilla Tape.